Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. Hope everyone is having a wonderful day. I thought I'd take this opportunity to join you on the water again. Hopefully the sound's going to be pretty good, I'm not sure, but we'll just have to do with what we have. Sometimes that's what you have to do. You just do with what you have. And on that note, I was thinking about what to talk about today. And for myself, I've been thinking about early retirement since basically last year. And what brought that all about was a couple years ago, my father became very sick. He ended up having lung cancer. And in that process, um, I learned a lot of things. I didn't know, and unfortunately, things didn't work out for my dad. The lung cancer ended up taking his life last year, and I guess what it taught me is that you can't take anyone for granted, and you can't think that you know there's always tomorrow. And I learned that firsthand with my father. I wish I could have done more, was there more, but unfortunately I wasn't. For me, it's too late, at least with my father. Fortunately, my mom is still alive. She's in her mid 80s now. You know, she's always been an active person, kind of a free spirit, but lately, the age is starting to catch up with her as well. And I know one day, you know, I'll call her and maybe she won't answer, and things probably won't work out very well. Hopefully, that's no time soon. But what I learned with my father and his battle with cancer and eventually succumbing to the disease is that you don't know. You have to kind of expect the worst, and hopefully that's not going to be the case. Um, with my mom, like I said, fortunately, she had always been, you know, an active person, always biking, walking, running, um, even into her early to mid 80s. Not even, 2, 3 months ago, her and I actually went on a bike ride together. Um, and she did very well. But even, just over the last couple months, I've noticed some changes. She's had some, slip and falls, and I just hope things, improve. Hopefully, her health will improve, and this is just, kind of a stumbling block. You know, not the beginning, the end, but just, something she's kind of going through, and hopefully something she'll be able to make it through to the other side. Um, but what this has all taught me, with my father going through his terminal disease, and my mom, with her health, starting to kind of waver. I wouldn't say fail, but it's definitely changing. Um, and I see that, firsthand. Unfortunately, with my father, I wasn't there when he passed away, but I had spent a lot of time with him, the 2 to 3 years before his passing. And, that's something I'm so grateful for, that I had that opportunity to spend with him, um, try to get to know him better, um, him and I, you know, we definitely had our differences, um, but I can definitively say that he's definitely one of the biggest influences, on my life. As far as taking responsibility, being a responsible adult, um, that had a lot to do with my father. And unfortunately, he's not here today, but his strength, his determination, you know, it sticks with me. And this whole thing about early retiring, you know, so many people make it about the money. Do I have enough? Do I need more? You know, when can I retire? You know, but what are you retiring to? If you don't have your health, if you don't have your mobility, all the money in the world is not going to give you a decent retirement. You may be surviving, but that is no way to live. Not in my opinion. So you have to make the best of every day, and you can't expect that those people that are close to you today will be there tomorrow. You just have to, as they say, do the right thing. Spend the time with them today, and hopefully you'll have tomorrow as well. But there's no guarantees. If you're fortunate, enough, you will. But as they say, you know, there's no guarantees. So just spend that time with them. Um, make that effort to be with your loved ones, as much as you can. I'd give anything to have, you know, another argument with my dad. And we argued a lot. And, I was always about, winning the battle. And unfortunately, I lost the war, you know, and the war was, my father and his battle with cancer. And now, you know, all those little victories I had, with those arguments, those little petty things, they don't mean anything, you know. They were just time wasted. And you don't want to do that. For me, it's too late. For you, if you're in a similar situation, um, make that effort, take the time, because once that time's gone, once that clock has expired, there's no turning back. It's too late. You can't get it back. Time is not a commodity. It is a finite source. And we don't know how much time we have, or those around us, those, closest to us. So take the time, make the effort, and do what you can today, because tomorrow you just don't know. You may not have that opportunity. So I know earlier on last year, after my father passed, I tried to kind of better myself, and really kind of focus on my future, my time, what I wanted to do, where I wanted to be. And now that is becoming clearer for me. Um, things have, come in focus. I'm still working on some things as far as, the particulars, but I know now that, I want to retire as soon as I can. And right now it's not based on finances. My situation's pretty good. I hope your situation is as well. So I've taken care of that. I've even, incorporated AI in my decision making. So that's something you can too. It's just my opinion. I'm just another guy on YouTube, and this is just my opinion. I don't, I'm not an expert, but from my experience, there's a lot you can do with AI. Um, if you put junk in, you'll get junk out. So you have to be very selective with your questions. But for myself, financially, you know, I'm ready to retire. But now it's the mental aspect, you know, the why, why retire. That's something I'm working on. I know I want to spend time, doing what I want, when I want, where I want, and for as long as I want. But then it's those times when I'm not doing things or traveling, what will I be doing? How will I be spending my time? And that's really what I'm working on now. Um, it's not if I'll retire, it's when I'll retire. But then that's just a date and time. What will I do after I retire? I plan to be very active, definitely, travel. But the main thing, in order for me to travel and be active and do what I want, is to be as healthy as I can be, you know. And just like I am today out here on the lake, you know, I'm talking with you. Hopefully you're having a good day. There's some guys going by on a little boat. Pretty cool. But, like I was saying, in order to do what I want, to travel, you know, be active, uh, give them my time, volunteer, I'm going to have to be healthy and in shape and have that mobility. So that's what I'm working on now. Um, it's one thing, you can have the finances, but if you don't have the mobility, there goes that bird. Look at that. Uh, there he goes, circling back around. Yeah, without health and mobility, you know, money's just keeping you alive. And I don't want that for myself. And I definitely don't want that for you as well. So all I can do is suggest, you know, keep yourself in good shape, or at least the best shape you can. You don't have to do it overnight. I'm definitely not, I'm no spring chicken, and things just take longer, you know what I mean? And when you do something, it just takes more out of you as you age. And I'm already noticing that. But there's things, I'm doing to combat it. And one of those things is just, exercising, working out, keeping active, and not just making it about work, during the week and then on the weekend, just catching up on things. It's hard to do, and believe me, I feel your pain. Um, Work is work, and we all need time to relax. But I know most of us, including myself, you get home, first thing you want to do is eat, maybe plop down in front of the TV, relax, maybe even take a nap. And those are all fine and dandy, but you still have to take care of yourself, including your body and mind. So, doing what you can to keep as active as you can, that is first and foremost. So that goes along with the why, why you want to retire. For me, I want to do the things I want to do when I want to do them, where I want to do them, and for as long as I want to do them. And if I'm not, you know, at my peak shape, then that's going to be very difficult. So that's why, today I'm out here on this gorgeous lake, enjoying the views. I love the water. There's always something new. It's never the same thing twice. And hopefully the movement on the camera is not too bad. Um, I did have my mic, but then my mic, the battery is weak, or maybe I just didn't shut it off. But it's beautiful out here today, and I'm glad you're out here with me. And like I always say, I don't know everything. I'm just a guy on YouTube, um, getting into early retirement, and I kind of want to share with you, the experiences I'm going through, um, the decisions, some of the indecisions about early retirement, and what I'm finding out is, once you have your finances in order, then you have to really work on yourself, and what you're going to do, in retirement. And if that includes traveling, spending time with the kids, the grandkids, significant other, you know, that takes energy. So you have to get out there and get yourself healthy, both mentally and physically. Um, because I've seen and experienced, a lot of people in retirement that they don't have mobility. They may have finances. It's not an issue with money for a lot of people. Not everyone for sure, but for a lot of people, they have the money. They just don't have the health or mobility. So I don't want that to happen to you. You know, I'm working on myself every day. I'm trying to do something active. Even my work is pretty active. I don't just sit around most of the time. I'm up and out, um, doing some traveling. Um, it's not easy, but it does keep me moving. Nothing worse than that sedentary lifestyle. You have to get that heart working. So, you know, once you figure out your finances, you really have to work on your health, because finances, a big 401k, um, without, the ability to get out there and do anything with it, it's just, that's not living. That's just barely surviving. And that's something I don't want for anybody. Wow, it's beautiful. Try not to babble on too much, but babble or rattle. But, if you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comments. You can share, anything about, early retirement, planning, health, exercise, travel. I'm looking at doing some serious travel, um, to Southeast Asia. That's kind of on the top of my list, later this year. Um, Definitely have some other trips, probably, sprinkled in between now and then. But you just have to do what you have to do to keep yourself healthy. Finances, as I always say, you can always make more money. You can always go back to work if you early retire or you're in retirement. But health, once it's gone, it is super difficult to get back. Um, I see it every day, in the work I do, um, at different ages, people in their 30s that have no mobility, have serious health issues, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, as we talked about before, there's three stages, they say, in retirement. The first stage is the go-go years. That's where you're like, most active, for the most part, hopefully. And that can last as long as you can do it. It could be, 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years. But at some point, uh, we all slow down. And then that turns into the slow go years, as they say. And that could last, you know, a year, 5 years, who knows? That really depends on your health. There, you're probably, spending more time um, kind of low impact trips and vacations, cruises, things like that. Um, and that can last for a period of time, depending on your health again. And then the final stage is the no go years. And that's something, you know, for myself, and I'm sure, you as well, you'd want to put that off as long as possible. And that, you know, that's really the final stage. That could last into your 80s or 90s if you're lucky. But, a lot of people kind of assume that they're going to be around forever, and that's just not the case. None of us make it out of this. So we have to make the best of it for as long as we can. So that's really all I have to say for today. Hopefully, you get something out of this content. If you do, feel free to like. If you want, you can subscribe. Hopefully I can bring more content that, be of interest to you. And like I said before, please share, your ideas about um, retirement, what you're doing, any suggestions you have, um, things that have worked out, and things that haven't. We learn from our mistakes, as they say. So, please share those as well. I appreciate your time. Hopefully, you know, you'll be happy, healthy, and have a tremendous day ahead. Good to see you. Take care. Let's take another little view over here. It's so peaceful. That water is just shimmering. Get my little yellow kayak. I love it. I don't like to disturb nature. I like to be at one with nature. And being on a kayak, that definitely helps me do that. It's beautiful. Well, take care, everyone. Be safe. Bye bye.